Hi, everybody. So Kathy, hi. Kathy totally stole my question about who's been to a B-Sides before, but I will just say that I love, love, love B-Sides events. And if you don't know, they're everywhere. They're all over the world. I live in Maryland, so the DC metro area. We have B-Sides Charm, which is Baltimore. Mr. Mann here is one of the organizers. We have B-Sides Nova, Northern Virginia. We have B-Sides DC, although they haven't done that for a minute. Yay! And what else? B-Sides Philly and B-Sides Delaware. So we're kind of spoiled for B-Sides where I live. Harrisburg, well, that's kind of out of the radius, but whatever. You're just trying to get me to go. Is it? Oh, okay. I thought it was farther away. Apparently my Pennsylvania geography is not fabulous. But anyway, so I'm super excited to be here. I have not been to B-Sides Rochester before. This is my first time. And Kathy invited me to come and talk with you all, so I'm very happy to be doing that. And one thing I was going to say, too, is the fact that you're all here is fabulous, because one of the most important things about cybersecurity is the networking piece. And I don't mean plugging in the cables, although that is also important, but just meeting other people, because it's a really small community. And I can't even tell you like how many opportunities I've gotten just through like word of mouth, that kind of thing. Kathy, I met at a conference, not a B-Sides, but a different conference. And Jeff, I met at a conference, and lots of people met at conferences, and it's just a really good thing to be out here today. So give yourselves a little pat on the back and say, yay. Anyway, let me get to what I'm supposed to be talking about. All right, so a little bit about me. I am a Principal Information Security Engineer at a company called Equinix. Has anybody heard of Equinix before? Oh my gosh, a few of you have. Not Equifax. That's something different. Yeah, so we're the world's biggest data center company that most people have never heard of. But I will say that 90% of all internet traffic goes through our servers on any given day. So we're out there in the space. And we have like 260 data centers all around the globe. So I've been there almost 2 years now, and it's been a really interesting space to work in, because we have all the normal, like sort of corporate enterprise security concerns, but we also have ICS/OT, so operational technology, right? Like all our data centers have building management systems that are running all the equipment. So that's like a whole nother dimension of things that you have to protect, right? And then, of course, because of our widespread geographic region, we also have to deal with like geopolitical issues, like what's physically happening around our data centers, that could be impactful to access or anything else. For example, and this is not really physically around the data centers, but subsea cables. Like I never gave a lot of thought to subsea cables before. Now I do, because we have a data center, not just one, but a few of them in Nigeria. And there was a huge outage last week, and like several countries in Africa lost all of their internet, and it's still actually being repaired. So things that, like I said, weren't really on my radar, but kind of interesting, right? And that's why I love this field, because it's always something new and exciting. I did not mention, but I'm a career changer. So I did something completely different until like, 10, 11 years ago. So I'm here to tell you that it can be successfully done. So who here is kind of new to cyber? A few people? Awesome. Career changers? Yeah? Are you excited about it so far? Yes, yay. If you want to come and talk to me about the career change thing afterwards, I'm always happy. I'll talk to anybody all day long. So anyway, another thing that is kind of important and near and dear to my heart is I'm on the board of directors for an organization called Cyberjitsu. Has anybody heard of Cyberjitsu? Oh, good, a few people. So we're a nonprofit. It's all about getting more diversity in cybersecurity. And we're kind of geared towards gender diversity, but really diversity across the board. So we do a lot of cool training and deliver a lot of workshops. We do cyber competitions together, which leads me to the cyber competition part. So Kathy mentioned Meta CTF is here. Who's done a CTF before, or capture the flag? Okay, quite a few of you, but even more of you have not, so I highly recommend it. It's a fabulous way to just discover like new things that maybe you never thought to try or whatever. And I do a whole talk about like CTF for noobs, just, how to get started in it. And I'll try not to do like a synopsis of every single talk I've ever done during this one slide. But I will say, I love network traffic analysis. As I say here, I'm a packet nerd. And I saw my first packet capture in a cyber competition. And would I have seen one eventually? Yeah, probably. But I was doing a digital forensics challenge, and they presented me with a PCAP and said, analyze this and figure out, like, it was an intrusion that had happened. You had to figure out, like, everything. And I was just like, first thing I do is Google, what's a PCAP? So, but it's really a great way to learn. What else? I'm blathering on about things. Well, it's a packet capture, but yes. So, anywho, I am at Marcelle Lee on pretty much all the things if you're looking for me. I am on Twitter, but I really don't go there anymore because it's such an awful dumpster fire. And I'm on LinkedIn. You need my email address to connect with me. So that will be like your first challenge, is find my email address. You can do it. It's easy to do, actually. I'm on GitHub, same thing. Medium, I write blogs about cyber things. And so enough about that slide. So a shameless plug. CyberJitsu is having a conference. It's, I think, our fourth one now, a CyberJitsu Con, and that will be happening in the DC metro area, as you can see, June 21st and 22nd. If you happen to be in the area, love to have you. It's also hybrid, so it's actually accessible to anybody. Our call for papers is still open, so if you haven't submitted, you could do that. It would be good. So anyway, and we just finally pinned down our location. That's been like a nightmare. But we are now locked in at the Washington Nationals Stadium, baseball stadium. So it should be kind of a fun venue. I don't know. I just want to be in the box seat where they have the cocktails. No, okay, anyway, so enough about that. So let's get to what I'm actually here to talk about today. And I don't do keynotes all that often. I've done a few before. I typically do technical talks and workshops and that kind of thing. So I was kind of struggling. I'm like, what should I talk about? But then I was like, what's on my mind all the time, like as a security professional? And what's on my mind is just how the playing field has really been kind of shifting in the security space. Yes, there's a lot of the same old, but there's a lot of new as well. And it's hard for organizations to keep up. So who here is in like some kind of blue team role in their job? Defenders. Yes, my hat is off to you because that's tough. Wait, what's everybody else doing? Are you all red team? Everybody's a pen tester. Anyway, there's a million different jobs in cybersecurity, of course. So I'm not going to read this whole list now because I basically have a slide for every one of these points, but let's just get into that. Okay, the first thing that I wanted to talk about, and kind of the title of the whole presentation, is the whole expanded area of ransomware, which basically doesn't even involve ransomware that much anymore, right? So threat actors are figuring out that encrypting a bunch of files is just like an extra step in the process that they don't necessarily need to do, right? So these days it's much more common to see what we call sometimes smash and grab, right? The threat actors are getting into the environment, they're exfiltrating the data, and then they're holding that data hostage. And there's nothing new about that, but the new part is where they're just not even bothering with the ransomware part. And I have another slide where I'm going to talk about dwell times, and that all kind of plays into that, right? So there's other things that these threat actors are doing that are kind of alarming. And one thing that I see as a very disturbing trend is that I feel like back in the olden days, some things were sacred. Some things did not get popped, like children's hospitals, for example, which there's one in Chicago that got hit with ransomware I don't know, last month. And like, who goes after a children's hospital? I don't know. It's just awful, right? So I don't know. Like, threat actors, how much ethics do they have? It's questionable, but I do feel like there used to be spaces that were a little more, protected from that kind of activity. That is not true at all anymore. Everybody's fair game. So I don't care what company you work for, what sector you're in, it is very likely that you could get hit with ransomware. It just doesn't matter anymore. Anybody who has some money to pay is an eligible candidate for threat actors. So some other things that we're seeing too is denial of service attacks tied in with ransomware, or I keep saying ransomware, but extortion, right? So it's a technique that threat actors are using. They're like, okay, if you don't pay, we're going to DOS the heck out of you, right, until you do. And this is kind of a up and coming thing. Denial of service attack, if you're not familiar with it, is just where you basically send a lot of traffic to a server and make it fall over because it can't handle all the requests. Swatting patients, this goes back to what the heck are they thinking? So in these situations where like a medical facility, hospital, whatever is hacked, they will they have all the patient information because they've stolen it, and then they literally will reach out to those patients with doing SWAT attacks. So if you are not familiar with that, it's basically where you call the police or whatever, I guess I don't know if there's another way to contact the police for these things, but call the police and say there's some heinous crime happening at this address, and they send out literally like the SWAT team. And so these poor unsuspecting patients are getting swatted. And this is just a way to put the pressure on the organizations to pay. Craziness. Fake hackback offers. So this is another kind of new thing too. The threat actors have all your data, right? And they send somebody to your organization pretending to be like a white hat hacker, and that person will be like, hey, I actually have access to your stolen files. If you pay me, I'll recover them for you. But it's just the threat group still, so they're just like looking for another angle to get money, which is insane. And then exit scams. So Black Hat just did this recently, but exit scams are when these groups that run like ransomware as a service operations, they have a bunch of affiliates, right? And the affiliates are using their platform basically to do their ransomware attacks, and then they get like the money, and then the main group gets the part of the proceeds or whatever. But basically, if the main group does an exit scam, then the affiliate group maybe doesn't end up getting any money. But I don't really care about that part, but I care about where maybe somebody is paid a ransom and they don't get their files back or anything because that group just like said sayonara, bye-bye, and they're just not in business anymore. Or they'll be in business, but they're going to stand up as some other iteration. So yeah, surprise, surprise, threat actors do really bad criminal type things. But anyway, and the United Healthcare group thing, that's huge. I don't know if you all have been tracking that, but like I had to pay, I mean, it's not like a terrible story, but I had to pay full price for a prescription because I have like a manufacturer discount card, and they couldn't process my manufacturer discount card. So it was like twice as much as I would normally pay, and it's not a cheap prescription. So it actually hit me personally too, but it's really impacting a lot of people. Okay, enough about that. So more sophisticated social engineering. Phishing emails and that kind of stuff continue to get more sophisticated. And I will say that AI, and I'm going to try not to say AI 10,000 times in this deck, but that might be the only one time I say it. We'll see. But AI is really helping threat actors craft more like intelligible, grammar correct, whatever, phishing emails. But it's not just phishing. There's also vishing, voice phishing, smishing, SMS phishing. You're like, no, not the vishing. They're awful words. Wait till I say quishing.
That's the voice.
It is. It is the wastefulness. So quishing is QR code phishing. So at Equinix, I can tell you, I do like a quarterly phishing roundup. I forgot to mention I lead our threat research team. So I am in there doing research, writing reports, and all that kind of stuff. So I do a quarterly roundup of all the phishing activity that we see. And let me just tell you, people love to phish Equinix employees. Any given quarter, we will have received around 100,000 phishing emails. So it's great for research because I get to see like pretty much every phishing campaign that's out there. Not so great for, trying to secure your organization. Thankfully, we have excellent controls in that area. But some of these examples here, like literally are things that we have seen, right? So the one login thing, credential harvesting, that is the number one phishing thing that we see. And if you're not familiar, it's basically you'll get an email and it'll say, you need to log in to view this document or do whatever. And you put in your credentials and then they get scooped up by the threat actors for future use or sale. And then, and then you don't even half the time know that this has even happened, right? They're pretty good. And you can see that one there. It has the Equinix name, Equinix logo. This could fool people, definitely. The smishing one I have there, this is all actual stuff from my organization, on WhatsApp, which is very common in Europe, right? People don't use it as much here, but everybody uses it in Europe. And so this happened to one of our European data centers, and the person that they're spoofing is like an executive over there. And so basically sending a message over WhatsApp to an employee and, saying, hey, I need you to do something really quickly, very important, all the usual cues. Thankfully, that one got nipped in the bud, but it actually went pretty far down the pike, whereas, and this is a common thing too, and these are all excellent things to warn your people about. They're like, oh, this is super secret. We need to have like kind of offline comms, so we're just going to talk by WhatsApp and give me your personal email address so I can send you this file. And the unsuspecting finance person in this case kind of was going along with it until finally they were like, wait a minute, this is kind of fishy. But yeah, you get them to use their personal email, then now you're bypassing all the like corporate security controls, and I'm pretty sure that was going to lead to a business email compromised financial kind of thing, right? But it got caught, thankfully. Deepfakes. So I've not seen this in our environment yet, but I'm sure it's just a matter of time. But this was a really interesting thing that happened fairly recently where somebody in finance, and I think this was over in Europe also, but China, that's right, Asia, not Europe. And they were on like a video call with what appeared to be their colleagues, and they were all deepfakes. So a note of caution, if you have like any video of yourself out there, that can be used to generate deepfakes. I have lots of video of me out there, but I'm also not like an executive. So if I got on a call with somebody and was like, I need you to give me $25 million, they'd be like, who are you? So anyway, but particularly for your executives, right? Your VIP people in your organization. And then the last one, quishing. Sorry, I have to say it again. I have to say, I don't get the trend of quishing because basically somebody gets this email in their work, email inbox. And this was targeting an Asian employee because you can see it's in Chinese and whatnot. And we do actually have, are you videotaping me right now? Oh, okay. That's right. Yeah. So we do actually have data centers in China, which is another interesting dimension of our organization. But I will say that is like completely firewalled from the rest of the company. So, but anyway, in this one, the idea is that somebody will get this email with a QR code, and it's like, you need to scan this QR code to read whatever. And I'm just trying to figure this out. So I'm sitting at my desk reading an email, and they're like, okay, I need to, wait, let me get my phone and scan this. And it just like doesn't make any sense to me, but it works. This is like so popular right now. So another thing to warn your users about, just don't scan QR codes. Unfortunately, the pandemic made us like really QR code happy, and we need to like break that habit of that. Anyway, I'm going on and on too much. Okay, increased use of legitimate services. So we all know this, right? Yes, Dropbox is used, and no big surprise there. But there's some other trends that I've been seeing just in our environment that are a little different. So Cloudflare's workers.dev. Is anybody familiar with that? Yeah, a few people. I've got a little snippet there of what it looks like, but basically you can set up a server with basically, 3 lines of code, and then you have your own workers.dev site, and you can put whatever you want on it. So we get hundreds of phishing emails with workers.dev, and it's tricky, right? Because it's a legitimate site. You can't just say, oh, just block everything that's workers.dev. So you have to, so in our environment, we would do an assessment of like how much legitimate traffic do we have going to workers.dev versus malicious, and you have to kind of make an educated decision about whether you're going to block it or not. But I'm going to tell you, blocking domains for like phishing control it's whack-a-mole. It's really hard to manage that. You really need to have a good system that's going to do a little more deep inspection of emails. So IPFS sites, this is another one that is very trendy right now. IPFS, which I'm not going to lie, I kind of love the interplanetary file system. Like, I don't know who came up with that name, but it's fabulous. So there's a number of different organizations that run these IPFS networks, and it's basically a peer-to-peer sharing kind of network. But these are also used to deliver phishing content. So again, we see hundreds of these every week. So many of them. And again, it's a legitimate domain that you can't just block. And I have done the assessment on that one, and we do use it for legitimate purposes, or people are going to those sites for legitimate reasons. Search engines. So the little snippet that I have at the bottom there is something we've been seeing quite a bit of lately, where the threat actor embeds their malicious link in what is basically like a Bing query in this case, but I've also seen it with Google and whatnot. And you click on this, you think it's just search results, why would you click on a link that's search results that you didn't search for? But people just are trusting and they don't know. So yeah, so you click on that and it takes you right to the malicious site, and boom, you're going to get your malware or whatever. What else here? Oh, the great power, less responsibility. I had to snip that because that's literally on the Cloudflare workers.dev page. And I was like, oh, that's kind of perfect. That's exactly what we're talking about here. Calendly. So this is something that I just read about for the first time recently. Does anybody use Calendly? Yeah, I mean, I do too, for like my students. Oh, I forgot to mention I teach at University of Maryland too. But so with Calendly, basically it's a service where people can make appointments with you, and it's kind of hooked up to your calendar and they, whatever. But you can have your own service. So I have my Zoom set up with mine, but you can also just let the attendee pick the service that they want to use for the meeting. So people are using this basically and sending a link to the meeting, it's embedded in the meeting invitation, and it's just a link to a malicious site. So the one example that I was reading about is it downloaded some malware, it was just a direct drop, and then they get an error message saying they can't join the meeting. So they're like, what's happening? But then that person has ghosted them because they just wanted to infect them and not really actually meet with them as well. I think it'd be more polite if they still had the meeting at least, but that's just me. Okay. Stolen credentials. Oh my gosh. So, so many stolen credentials out there. Who here has checked their email on have I been pwned or any site like that? Okay. If you haven't, please do that. Not right this second, but after. During Jeff's talk would be fine. So there are so many credentials out there. Your email address, I guarantee you, is on a list somewhere. So threat actors are collecting credentials, usernames, passwords, combinations of both, or just one or the other. And they use them, well, first of all, they collect them by doing the credential harvesting, like I was talking about before, but also with info stealers. So info stealers are a kind of malware that do exactly what the name implies. They are on your box and they are stealing data and sending it off to the C2 server, command and control server. So very, very prevalent, and we see so much of this. But anyway, so that's how they're collecting them for the most part. And then they're using them for credential stuffing attacks. So basically throwing a bunch of passwords and usernames at a site or whatever, or server, or remote access point or something, just trying to get in. And if you have enough credentials, chances are you're going to get in at some point, right? And this is how a lot of intrusions happen. I didn't even get into initial access vectors in this talk, but they're pretty consistent, right? It's compromised credentials somehow, exploitation of external facing service, some vulnerability in it, or phishing. So yeah, those are your top three over and over again. So I guess that's why I didn't talk about them, because they haven't changed too much. So a case study of this was the Okta breach, and in this case, the Okta employee had their credentials out there on the marketplace, and people buy and sell these all the time. Like the thing that I have there, Have I Been Pwned, adds 71 million emails from the nas.api list. That's crazy, 71 million emails. And Troy Hunt from Have I Been Pwned spot checked them, because a lot of time these big lists come out and everybody's like, oh my God, 71 million. But it turns out it's just a conglomeration of a bunch of lists that were already out there. But these were fresh, new ones, so it's huge. So anyway, so the Okta breach, this happened with them, right? Somebody got credentials and got in. So I have a little snippet there, which is going to be super hard to see because it's small, but it's a tool that we use to keep track of poppequinix.com emails, and we know if we identify as an employee who's on one of these lists, it's instant password reset, and that's the best way we can manage that sort of thing. But I just, for grins and giggles, put Okta in there as a wildcard search, and yep, Llama Stealer, there's an Okta address. So it's really a good thing to be mindful of in your environment. And even if you're just using Have I Been Pwned or something, it's better than nothing. Okay. All right, shorter timing increases pressure. This is, speaking of timing, let me just look. Oh, okay. This is three different things. I was originally going to have 3 slides, but I'm yeah, it all comes down to timing. So first of all, who's aware of the relatively new SEC rules about disclosures? Okay, a few people. So for those of you who aren't aware of it, how long... Well, let me just say this first. If you have a breach and you're a publicly traded company, you are required to report that to the Securities and Exchange Commission. How long do you think you have to report that? Just throw out an answer. Well, that's what it is now. I was going to have people guess, but yes, it is 4 days. You're absolutely right. I was hoping somebody was going to say a month, a year, whatever. No, it's 4 days. 4 days is an incredibly short... No, I feel bad. No, you're all good. You're awesome. I love that you know that. Yeah, 4 days is an incredibly short time to realize that you've had some sort of incident, figure out kind of at least what happened in the incident, and then report it to the SEC. So that's putting a lot of pressure on companies to have to be able to maneuver really fast. Another thing that the timing has really changed on is the go-to-market for vulnerability exploits. So I have a note there from Bitdefender, a paper that they did, and they're talking about it's 24-hour turnaround time now. So from the time that a vulnerability is announced to the time that somebody has dreamed up an exploit for that vulnerability, it's super, super fast. So what does this mean to you as a defender? You need to, first of all, make sure that if you have exposure to whatever that vulnerability is, that you're remediating it, taking care of it right away. And, people struggle with this because half the time they don't even know these vulnerabilities exist unless it's something that really hits the news, like Ivanti, Fortinet, like these are ones that get a lot of press, but there's plenty of other ones that don't get that kind of attention. And then the other thing is the dwell times. So dwell time is basically how long a threat actor is in your environment. And it used to be like a long time. That time has shortened significantly. In some cases, according to SecureWorks, where I used to work, they do good research, they found like 24-hour turnaround from the time that the threat actor gets in the environment till they do whatever it is that they're going to do. A lot of times ransomware, right, or some kind of data exfil. That's so hard for people to like detect that and do something about it in that short amount of time. So it's crazy. And like, I don't know about Bitdefender, but SecureWorks, I can tell you they have a very robust incident response practice. So they're getting all their intel from incident response engagements that they've worked on. Okay. I hope I'm not like totally depressing everybody. It's not all doom and gloom. We can win the battle, or at least something, I don't know. Okay, multi-platform malware. So this is another kind of trendy thing. I think threat actors are probably like, oh, we're so cool. We're going to write some malware in Rust today. But this is a thing. So Rust is becoming very common. Go, D. I didn't even know there was a D until I read about malware written in it, but I'm not like a coding kind of person. So I just pulled out a few examples and looked up the hashes in VirusTotal. And the detections are just not there, like for just a regular, executable, you're going to see much higher detections. And if you're not familiar with VirusTotal, it's fabulous. It's free. I'm spoiled with an enterprise version with all the bells and whistles, but anybody can use the free version. So this is another thing, and it makes the malware multi-platform, right? So that's huge. So let me ask a quick question, and you can answer it if you want to. Can Macs get malware? Yes, they absolutely can, of course. And Linux, of course, yes. And people are like, oh, well, my computer's not a Linux computer, but guess what? Probably all your servers in your environment are Linux. So it's very prevalent. So this is something to be mindful of too. Okay, how am I doing on time? All right, I'm going to speed through this. Malvertising, fake browser updates, all the good things. SEO poisoning, this is also very up and coming and used a lot by threat actors. Threat actors, first of all, I feel like they used to be like lean and scrappy, but now they're just like making fat stacks and they can afford to pay for like Google ads or whatever. So we are seeing this, right? They are leveraging paid tools to do their badness. So fake browser updates are huge. SOC Golish is like traditionally delivered, but like the one I have there delivers lemma stealer, which is an information stealer. And that's totally out of our environment as well, right? That was a phishing email that led to that. So very realistic looking. Again, this is like an awesome user education point. Thank you. Somebody gave me a time card. That's good. Okay, speeding through this one. More intense DDoS attacks. I feel like denial of service attacks used to be more like a nuisance thing. Now they will definitely make your stuff fall down. And like 398 million requests per second is the one that happened with like Google last October. And I don't know if there's been a bigger one since then, but that's huge. So you can definitely employ some defenses around that to protect your environment, web application firewalls, that sort of thing. But just something to be mindful of. And I can't even read what this says without my glasses. Oh yeah, so what you see there is last year, Anonymous Sudan decided they're going to start popping a lot of companies, and I don't know why, but they're like, the first one we're going to do is Equinix. And so we're all like, okay, bring it. But and the reason we even were aware of that is because we troll all these different forums and marketplaces looking for mentions of our organization. And it's not that hard to do, and you can get a lot of bang for your buck that way. We want to know when threat actors are talking about us. The other snippet is where they're talking about how they're using Equinix infrastructure to do bad things. So this is like, know your customer, right? Are we selling our servers to like threat actors? Hopefully not, but apparently they are looking at us for it. Okay, anyway. Supply chain attacks. You probably all are pretty familiar with that, but this is an increasing area. And one of the huge things with this is the software supply chain. There are so many like malicious packages out there and repos. And when people are, doing their coding things, they're just pulling like from libraries and whatever. There's malware being put in libraries and packages all the time now. So you build your lovely application and it comes with malware built in, like a little extra bonus that you shouldn't expect. So something to be mindful also, and there are tools to look for that kind of thing. Okay, so this is the part where I give you some lessons on how you can help yourself, which I have like 2 minutes to do. But anyway, know your assets. If nothing else, you have to know what assets you have in your environment, right? If you don't know what your assets are, then how do you protect them? It's like, I don't even know who lives in my house, but I feel like I should feed them or something. You have to know that. That's hands down, I think, one of the most important things. Consuming relevant threat intelligence. Like you do unfortunately kind of need to stay on top of these things. And if you have a threat intel team that works for you, that's awesome. But many of us do not have that luxury, so you kind of have to do it yourself. Getting into like trust groups, getting email list for like CISA, things like that are ways that you can kind of increase your information flow. Educating your users, again, hands down, this is such an important thing. All the things that I've talked about, not all of them, but a lot of them come down to users. And I used to be a user. Well, technically I am still a user, but I'm more savvy than I used to be. But don't bash your users, please. They just are trying to do their jobs. They don't know. They're not like dialed into all this stuff. So having an environment that's safe for them to be able to like report things is so important, because if they're terrified to like tell you that they clicked on something, that's not good for your environment. Lessons learned from other incidents, leveraging frameworks, and by that I mean like the MITRE ATT&CK framework, for example, is a really great one for mapping out threat actor tactics, techniques, and procedures, TTPs. Continuously monitoring attack surfaces, so anything that you have that is internet facing, you should be looking all the time to see what ports and services are open. You can use like Shodan for free to do that. Identifying gaps and having an incident response plan. So that will leave me with my last slide. So lessons learned. This is a huge thing that we do at Equinix, and it's our CISO drives it, right? Whenever there's like a significant breach, like he wants to know about it. So we put together these kill chains, because I'm now also a pro at Canva, but we put together graphics for them. I know Canva's great, I love it. We put together graphics, and the part that you don't see there, the bottom half, is our controls and where we see potential gaps based on what happened in that incident. The MITRE ATT&CK mapping, I already said that, but that's really important. That comes down to like security controls and just knowing what kind of stuff is happening more prevalently in your environment is huge. So this report that we wrote, my whole team wrote because it was massive, we did an analysis of like what we called common attack vectors, and which is that laundry list of things there. And some of them are more common than others, of course, but things that we thought were potentially impactful for our environment. And we did one of these kill chains and MITRE ATT&CK mapping for every single one of them, and looked at potential impact. So that report now is being used for to inform our tabletop exercises that we do. Like basically you're pulling stuff out of that. It's being used by our risk team to figure out like the materiality thing for like the SEC stuff. So really useful if you can take the time to do that kind of analysis in your environment. And that is it. So. Thank you very much for coming. I'll be around all day. If you want to come and talk to me, feel free. Ask me questions, whatever. And I think, are they breaking the room in half now? Okay. So I think they have to split the room in two, so you probably have a chance to go to the restroom. I don't know. Well, I know you're next. Somebody else is also next.